angry that I have to stand here and defend my womanhood again. I'm angry that I have to stand here and evolve into some sort of performer to get attention as a woman artist. I have to draw attention to the fact that I am a woman, because if I don't, the world wants to erase me. 55 years old, and I'm still fighting not to be erased. You would have thought this problem would have evolved into something more interesting. But the threat of erasure has been with me since childhood. Erasure by two things: God's will, filtered through my parents' religion, they're Jehovah's Witnesses, and man's will, of course at my father's insistence. So, the Jehovah's Witnesses is a religion of repression. No, let's get real. It's a cult. And when I realized this, I wanted out. When I didn't give in to what the cult wanted, their forgiveness for not following their ways, they commanded me to repent. I said no, they said leave. I thought, fine, I don't want to be here anyway. So what did I do? I shrugged, scowled, as only a 15-year-old can. And on that day became the Walking Dead. I'm not going to make it past Armageddon to the Jehovah's Witness paradise. Sorry, you'll be dead, seemed their general attitude. We'll miss you in paradise. Whew. But that was okay. Because I was like, fuck this. My paradise had nothing to do with theirs. Dictated by some God. Their divine plan? Their divine plan of 98% of humanity wiped out, so gods, with a small g, chosen few could thrive. What a narcissistic, slurping the Kool-Aid wholesale delusion. The outside world was going to be my paradise. It's better to be out than completely in and brainwashed. So for the next 2 years, I was free, but not free to leave my father's house, or leave my mother's shadow as she held the Bible over my head like some guillotine. Both preached to me nonstop. I became a pro at, tuning out. My prison of limbo. But in the few months before I turned 18, that magic age when I could physically leave, I blew up the cage that had trapped me for so long. I had missed my 11 p.m. curfew again. And as I sat in the living room, my mother sat across from me, Bible in hand. My father paced and ranted. I stood up and said, "No, I don't care about your religion. I don't know what's the big deal. I came home late." "Keep your voice down," he said. Wasn't he just yelling? "Think about the neighbors." I'll think about the neighbors. I whipped open the front door, stepped out into the front lawn and screamed, "I hate my parents!" I went back inside, slammed the front door, stomped up the stairs, and slammed my bedroom door shut. Of course, my father followed me, pushed open the door with his belt in his hand, and he commanded, "Turn around." Woo! Enforcing consequences, I thought. I walked straight up to him and pushed him against the wall. Thud. Whew. He just dropped his hands and left my room. Bullies. Meanwhile, I just wanted to tear him apart, my mother apart, my room apart, the entire house apart, board by board. This is where the threat and violence of erasure had brought me to. Rage. I did walk out of my family's house, my father's house. But eventually into a marriage that was not worse, but equally as bad. And while I was in that marriage, trying to find myself, going to college, getting jobs, there I was in similar situations, and I thought, how can this be? Didn't I leave all this behind? Talk about disappointment. There's always some set of people who wanted to mess with me because I was a woman. Whether that was my husband Al, a boss, a colleague, they wanted to see how far they could push me. Because they thought they could break me or change me. But they can't. Because for all intents and purposes. No matter how kind, how easygoing I am, I'm always going to be a revolutionary. I'm always going to question. I'm always going to want something other than the status quo. You want to know something about the status quo? The status quo gave us Donald Trump and his fascist henchmen. It gave us dogmatic, rigid, patriarchal religions. It gave us Elon Musk and a disgusting bro culture. It gave us laissez-faire capitalism. It gave us destruction for power. It gave us wars created by the elite. That's the status quo. And why would I want that? And really, what is that saying? Revenge is best served cold. Who said that? Can't even remember. I'd have to look that up, and I just don't have time. I don't have the time because I don't care about revenge. What I care about is something different. Something more than what we see now. Something more than what we've been taught. Something more than what we've been conditioned by. Something more than what they say we've condemned to. You know, here I am trying to do life, be part of a community, create my art. And I had to take time out to do this. I don't know. Maybe being in front of the camera isn't such a bad thing. I mean, I've done and I do a lot of things. I write, I photograph, I paint, even created a music video. But I've never done this. Raise my voice with the words that cut so close to my bones and put them out there like this. Out in the open air. You know, sometimes I get so frustrated that I just want to take a swing at anyone near me. Anyone in my way. Pow, pow. The problem is that if I start punching wildly, try to hit back at so many things that are hitting me. Take the news, for instance. I'd hit too many innocent bystanders. Friends and supporters, the community that I need. And really, what is not said in all these news stories is all what we want underneath, and that's just to live. And sometimes that just doesn't seem possible. I don't know about anybody else, but I can't ignore what's going on. I can't ignore the war in Sudan. I can't ignore the fact that women are used as pawns as they're being raped and tortured. I can't say, well, that's too bad, can't see it from my window. Because it affects me too. I don't live in the U.S., but I want to. I don't live in the U.S., but I used to. I was born in the U.S., and in 2020 moved here to Portugal. And I can't look away and pretend that women's rights aren't being ripped away in the United States, including the rights to safe abortions and birth control. As if anyone, especially any man, is going to tell me or any other woman, all right, here we go, to safe abortions and birth control. As if anyone, especially any man, is going to tell me or any other woman that we are their property, that we have no right to decide about our own bodies. Go ahead, try me. This is my body. It's mine. If I don't want to have a kid, I don't want to have a kid. And by the way, I've never had kids. My decision, my body. The other day I'm taking a walk with my dog by a lake. And as we go down the road, ahead of us off the dirt road, I see a family. A man fishing, two little girls playing on the beach, a woman sitting with an older man in the shade. We say hello as we pass by and walk on. On our way back to the car, we pass the family again. The man puts aside his fishing pole and calls me over. So I walk over. So I walk over and make my way towards their makeshift campsite. He holds out his hand and introduces himself. I shake his hand. And then he starts to pull me toward him. My father thinks you're pretty. I pull my hand away. You want a beer? He asks. No, I have to go to work. So I walk back out of the road, So I walked back out into the road. End of story, right? But that's enough, don't you think? Who did he think he was? I didn't yell or lash out, but I was anything but cool. My body language probably said it all. Don't fuck with me because I'll take you out. Like, I'm the good kind of crazy. Good for me, bad for you. And it seems like that's how I have to get on the inside in order to defend myself against this misogynistic bullshit. Against this misogynistic bullshit. To get through to some people, there have been times when I've actually had to say, don't fuck with me. Other times I've had to physically push men away who have pushed me. It's beyond reason that I have to do this just to be safe. And then, when I get that angry, the people who have provoked me can't believe I'm that angry. It's crazy. Makes me think of that World War II slogan. That one in England. Keep calm and carry on. Fuck that. Imagine bombs are destroying London and most of Europe. The Jews are being exterminated. And everybody's supposed to keep calm and carry on. Hello and welcome to the robot culture. Fuck that. During times of violence and degradation, everybody should remain calm? No. I say be human and carry on. Be sad and keep going. Be disgusted and keep going. Be enraged, but still keep going. And sometimes I'm enraged, and the only thing I can do is keep going. I had one ex-husband, I've had two husbands, both are ex. But this is about the second ex-husband. He told me once that you take things far too seriously. Maybe, but probably not. Our marriage didn't last that long. Because he took nothing seriously, not even his health. And you know what? He died far too young, not taking care of his heart condition seriously. Listen, I know my words at times, especially now, especially here, are raw. Because I'm not that person who can always wrap my words up nice and pretty with a bow. It's not in my personality, and it's not in my nature. And there's a lot of niceties that I don't need. The nice car, the nice house, the nice clothes. All I want to do is live. All I want to do is be able to create. All I want is a sense of community. And you know what? I'd like everybody to have that. But these little things, these big little things, seems too much to want. From the inside out, misogynistic powers try to erase us. The not so hidden consequence of all this erasure by the status quo is that we start thinking that maybe they're right. And we try to erase ourselves. And I've survived that too. These power constructs that push women down and strike out at men for rejecting the misogyny need to be taken out. When I was a kid, I was always the tallest in my class. Now I'm about 6 feet, 2 meters. Today that probably doesn't seem so tall, but back in the 70s, I was tall. One of my parents said to me one time, look at you, growing like a weed, like an Amazon. And you know, I wasn't too sure if I liked being called a weed or an Amazon. Then, as I got thinking about it, well, weeds are tough. And the Amazon, well, they were women warriors in Greek legend, right? Cool. These Amazons, they lived on the coast of the Black Sea at the edge of so-called civilization of the Greeks. And it was the Greeks, according to their myths, who invaded the lands of the Amazons. The Greek heroes, Heracles and Theseus, capturing and killing their queens. What the fuck, Greeks? I know, it's only myth. But still, those stories stay with us, don't they? The Greek myths also like to tell us that the Amazons killed their male children and their male lovers, or at least cast them out. That they cut off their right breast, that they cut off their right breast to improve their accuracy as archers. Obviously, rejecting the male status quo was an obvious threat. Women on their own and self-sufficient was a threat. Women ruling themselves was viewed as abnormal. As if they were women without conscience. Please. That's just the status quo of misogyny pissing themselves. So you know what? I'll take being an Amazon. Because I'm all about creating a life and community outside of the misogynistic cycle. But these ideas that have been written down so long ago have remained. Women who do not listen to men are punished. Myths are riddled with it. Judeo-Christian myths have a good keep your woman in your place story. They have plenty of them. But the Sodom and Gomorrah story was a fan favorite for the Jehovah's Witnesses when I was a kid. Once upon a time, there was a man named Lot, faithful servant to a male god, who can't find one good man in Sodom and Gomorrah. So God takes out the city, fire and brimstone. What about all the women and children? Oh yeah, right. They don't count. So Lot's wife, too bad they didn't give her a name, and their two daughters flee the burning city. But Lot's wife gets turned into a pillar of salt. Why? For looking back at the horrific destruction of Sodom and Gomorrah. Because the big bad male god said, don't look back. Sorry, she had a thought, a feeling, an instinct, whatever. She did the unthinkable and made a decision on her own and suffered the consequences. But here's the sicker part. Lot and his two daughters find a new place to live. And Lot's daughters are directed by the male god to get their father drunk and have sex with him. So his bloodline could continue. What? What kind of misogynistic asshole wrote this incest fantasy? And what about the misogynistic ecumenical counselors who voted for this bedside tale to be included in the Bible? Rotten through and through. I read one of Jane Goodall's books this year, In the Shadow of Man. It was her first. It's about her time in the Gombe Stream Chimpanzee Reserve in Tanzania. Incredible. I wish I'd read the book years ago. She had tremendous insights and observations, but two seem really relevant to what I'm sharing here. So our DNA is quite similar to chimpanzees. And, fix that. She had tremendous insights and observations about her time. And two of her observations seem rarely relevant here, in part because we share so much DNA with chimpanzees. The first was about when the female chimps were in heat. They didn't or couldn't reject any male chimps who wanted to mate them, as if bound by some unwritten law. There was one female she observed that stayed in heat for over 2 weeks. Jane Goodall stated that at the end the female was exhausted. Imagine. The second observation during the start of a big... that's too much. Imagine that. The second observation was really interesting. During the start of a big rainstorm, the high-ranking males would tear branches from the trees and run down the hill screaming just to make a racket, as if to rival nature's noise or release some sort of tension, or so Dr. Goodall surmised. While the females, the juveniles, and the lower-ranking males wisely remained under the protection and cover of the trees, watching the show. Thinking about the Greek and Christian myths, reading Dr. Goodall's accounts, well, I'd say that the evolution of humanity is lagging, stunted in many respects. We only have to read and see the news, talk about the Epstein files and the current genocidal wars in Sudan and Gaza, the showboat governments dropping bombs. This is our evidence. But we have to keep growing. We have to keep going, trying, defending. Too fast. We only have to see the news. This past March, I was really stoked because maybe, just maybe, there was a chance that I could take over a gallery space, that I could grow into a cultural space, an art center. I knew that securing the space might not happen. Like I said, I've always chosen things outside the status quo because I wanted to live life and do things that I wanted to do, which meant letting go of other things. Because why wait until I'm 65 to do what I want, right? Anyway, good work ethic and being a responsible person aside, I am not the one flush with investments and savings. To take over this gallery space, I would need to raise the money. And I knew this would be hard. I reached out to a few people via email just to test the waters, hopefully get some advice or some insights on my plan. Some people replied so enthusiastically, where I was so happy and so grateful, right, my people. Some didn't reply, and I respect that. And I expected it, respected and expected. But what I didn't expect is from one of the people I emailed who had not responded, reached out to me about a week later and asked me to spread the word about an exhibition that he had curated. Ready for the title? Women Under Influence. Whew! Here's the irony. This text was coming to me in March, Women's Month, the same month that I had exhibited in an all-woman show with a collaboration project titled A House of One's Own, with a nod, of course, to the great Virginia Woolf. I looked at the photos of the so-called artwork that were actually enlarged screenshots of movies. The women looked slightly out of focus, were out of focus, and appeared drunk, half in the bag, out of it. Too shocked to be angry, I sent a vague reply of, I'll see what I can do. As far as my email, he said they saw it, couldn't help, the sorry, not sorry tone. I deleted the conversation. Whatever, I thought. But I did go back up and looked up this image maker of women under influence. His project portfolio filled with images portraying women who are overpowered, infiltrated, held hostage. Series after series of misogynistic images posing as art. That just sent me over the edge. Talk about enraged. Woo! In a month of celebration for women, a man consciously or unconsciously, subconsciously, wanted to put me in my place, under his influence, control, as in just shut the fuck up and take it. So here I am, working jobs, creating art, taking care of myself, my dog. And my goal is to elevate not only my voice, but other voices. Create a community within the community. For the people, for art, for culture. And here's one more man with this misogynistic attitude wanting to push me out of the picture. Or if I'm in the picture, I'm ill-defined and incapacitated. And that's how the status quo wants women. Like this? Yep, under their control. And this from someone I thought was a supporter. How bad did I just want to tear something apart? By the way, the gallery will happen, just not at this moment, in that space. Remember, I'm enraged, but I keep going. But not every man is like this. Not every man subscribes to this misogynistic status quo. Like my friend Lucas. The other week, he was so upset. He had read a news story from Brazil about a woman stabbed to death by a man because she rejected his advances. He said to me, how could this even happen? How is it that men act this way against women? He said, I'm just so nervous, so anxious. I don't know what to do. And he was so upset. I really felt for him. I felt for his own shock and grief about this murder, this horrific murder. And I also felt a wave of thankfulness for witnessing a man being so upset at the violence. We women are not alone. We can be self-sufficient, and we are, but we don't need to be isolated. We all have to stand here and say, the misogynistic status quo has got to go. The misogynistic status quo has got to go. And we have to keep saying it. The other day, when I opened up the news, I opened my phone and clicked on the newspaper Publico. The first story that came across my screen read, 1/5 of those accused of rape are under 20 years old. Welcome to the digital Wild West. 1/5 of those accused for rape are under 20 years old. Welcome to the digital Wild West. Went on to explain that exposure to the digital culture that glamorizes violence against women in pornography with highly sexist scripts contributes to the increase in sexual violence by boys against girls. This isn't new behavior, but it's definitely one more escalation. Because we have all the evidence that it's grounded in this misogynistic status quo. It's called the Epstein files. All the powerful men who participated, colluded, and even worse, knew what was happening and did nothing. The worst kind of coward. We, the women and the men outside the status quo, are sickened, outraged. So what are we going to do? I was talking to a neighbor the other day as we walked our dogs. He said, my wife and I ask ourselves all the time, what do we do? I was like, we got to keep fighting. That's the answer. No matter how redundant this all is, all feels. It's like I gotta wake up in the morning and say to the world, hi, my name is Sarah Kilgallen. I'm a woman. Don't fuck with me. And then I gotta remember that I need to keep soft enough so I don't wear it like a badge, like a weight around my neck. This I don't fuck with me vibe. Which really only needs to come out in emergencies. But it's a tough place to be. It's like, not like. Some people just want to make life, some people want to make life very tough for the rest of us. There's a lot to question. There's a lot of change that can happen. But we'll never get out of the rut if we're stuck in the you don't count, you're a woman thing. The bias of women and womanhood needs to be thrown out the door, burned, and the ashes scattered. There are no answers. There's nothing I can do to just make it go away. None of us. None of us can just make it go away. And there's nothing I'm saying now that's news. But we have to keep talking, right? Like we have to keep going, even if we sound like broken records. The primordial scream, ah, gets it out, but it only gets me so far. The rest of the time, I need to use words, even if they aren't pretty words, poetic words, but they are words to describe, I don't want to do it like that. The rest of the time, I need to use words, even if they aren't pretty words or poetic words. But they are words to describe circumstances, events. They are words that explain what happened to us, what's happened to others, what happens to the world. And who the fuck gives a... And who gives a fuck about being cool about it? And it's actually okay that I'm in front of the camera, on stage, performing. Because I'd rather be on stage than backstage. or in the audience, silent, or worse,